First, it was the farmers, then it was some of the evangelicals, and now the truckers are starting to come out against Donald Trump over some of the decisions that he's made. Now, for the evangelicals, it's he swears too much, but for the truckers, it's much more important. It has to do with what he's been doing with the economy. So now, there's a lot of people on the Trump side that are saying, "What are you talking about? The economy is fantastic." Not so much for the truckers, at least. Business Insider went and talked to them, and look, these truckers they lean conservative. They're nobody's liberals, and so they were asked about Trump's stewardship of the economy, and especially in the trucking sector, as they would know. Now, one of the people they talked to was a man named Morris Kaufman. Now, Kaufman's been a truck driver for about 35 years, and again, he's nobody's progressive. That said, Kaufman told Business Insider that Trump is, quote, absolutely a moron. His idiotic ideas will tank the economy even further. Now, look, I said these truckers lean conservative. They're actually incredibly conservative. They're very reliably Republican. Verdant Labs' analysis of FEC data found that nearly three-quarters of all truck drivers are registered Republicans. One of the most conservative jobs in America, along with surgeons and farmers. And not only that, but truck drivers supported President Trump in droves. According to an Overdrive magazine survey from 2016, about 75% of them plan to vote for Trump, up from 66% who supported Senator Mitt Romney, the Republican nominee back in 2012, who ran against Obama. So these guys are a big part of why Donald Trump won the Electoral College. Now, what could possibly be shaking them from support of President Trump? Somebody that they so enthusiastically supported. It's the economy, stupid. Business Insider explains a sharp downturn in the trucking industry and a slew of tax changes have hampered their ability to make a living, and many connect those two trends to Donald Trump's economic policies. Now, one trucker who asked to be quoted anonymously, who was a small business owner, right? He said this: "He has not affected our business in a positive way. In fact, it gets worse." He said, "He's killing our business. If consumers aren't buying, then there's no demand. This really isn't about my political leanings. It's pure business." So now, wait a minute. I was told that the President Trump would be great for business, would be fantastic. He'd be the greatest businessman president ever. No, it turns out he is. But with this caveat, only if you're a very large multinational corporation. Now, for those corporations, right, the very large ones, their taxes were dramatically slashed in 2017 as a result of the GOP Trump tax cuts. Now, in that bill, they cut corporate taxes from about 35% down to 21%, among other changes that primarily were aimed towards very, very wealthy individuals and giant multinational corporations. Now, in order to cram this tax cut bill through, they ended up having to use some parliamentary tricks, right? So part of that meant that you had to make the individual cuts temporary. So now, not only that, but you also had to change other things like removing the SALT deduction, et cetera, state and local taxes, as well as other changes, right? So now some of these changes have led to many truck drivers actually paying more in taxes. Now, and that's a thanks in part to a change in the per diem laws. Now, Dennis Bridges, he kind of breaks this down. He's an accountant who specializes in doing taxes for truckers, told Mother Jones back in April that 75% of his clients saw an unusually large tax payment, and about 20% had to pay in about $5,000. So their taxes, they went up. Corporate taxes went down, and that was the whole point. 83% of the tax cuts went to the top 1%. That's who benefited the most. So now, these tax changes, as I said before, they're negatively affecting truckers, but add into it that they have been in the middle of what's been described as a trucker bloodbath. Now, this is something that I didn't know before as well. Now, as Aaron Terrazas, convoy director of economic research, explained in a report published on Thursday, the freight industry is currently experiencing a recession, which began in October of 2018. So now, trucking being in a recession is also now um, a sign or important of the overall economy also going into a recession because of how much it's this trucking is actually linked to. So now he added that freight volumes had been falling since last fall. That means low rates and low pay for truckers and less jobs overall. Now, transport research groups reported that the volume of trucks purchased in July also fell to its lowest level in nearly 10 years. The number of loads needing to be moved in the spot market tumbled by 37% this July compared to 1 year ago, and the rates have fallen by as much as 18%. Now, there are some people out there saying, oh, no, it's just the market correcting itself. That's all it is. It's a market correction. We're heading towards a financial recession in the economy. Oh, it's just a market correction. And nothing wrong here. What is it? What was Larry Kudlow talking about truckers as well? The guy's never been right about anything. Anyway, going back to Kaufman, he says this, quote, I have witnessed many ups and downs in the industry, but nothing like this. Meaning that the guy who's been through this before looks at the situation and says, this is not a market correction. This is not a minor thing. This is, as they put it, a bloodbath. He's also mentioned that many owner operators and drivers have either lost equipment or lost a job in the last year. Now, as far as I know, around 2,500 truckers have lost their jobs since just earlier this month when it was reported. More could be coming. In fact, the Cass Freight Index says that year-over-year trucking volumes had slipped for 8 consecutive months in June. Factory activity growth was at its slowest since October of 2016, according to the Institute for Supply Management. That means manufacturers did not receive as many orders, and there were fewer things to move. Now, truckers, they look at this and they go, wait, manufacturing is down. So if there's less things being manufactured here, then there's less stuff for us to move, and so we have less jobs, less pay, etc. And they're tying it to Donald Trump's trade war. J.L. Sims, a truck driver, talked to Business Insider. He said this, the truth about the rates being so low is Trump's trade policies. Quote, manufacturers are scared. Last month, manufacturing job numbers finally began to reflect the reduced production. Everyone looks at the unemployment rate and thinks mistakenly that the economy is in great shape. Manufacturing tells the real story. So, hey, man, so much for Donald Trump's economic boom. Now, look, if you're talking about politics, right, because that's what we do in the show, if he's losing the truckers, well, that's a disaster. Because it turns out that truckers are deeply involved in politics. In fact, according to the American Trucking Association, there was an estimated 3.5 million truck drivers in 2018. RTS Financial has also found that there are 7.4 million jobs total tied to the trucking industry. So that's a big section of the economy, right? Business Insider reported that nearly 90% of truckers are registered voters. That is higher, much higher, than the general population. More than half of all truckers have reported contacting an elected official. So they are deeply involved. They are plugged into politics. They pay attention because it's literally in their livelihood. And they see the warning signs and they think Donald Trump has been terrible for us. If Donald Trump loses even a majority of the truckers, over 50%, that's still going to hurt him massively. Which is why you've seen, I think, a focus and an increase on Donald Trump's dog whistle racism. He's stepping up his attacks against minorities in order to bring out what's basically left of his base, the racists and the white supremacists. because he's lost or is in the process of losing everyone else because of his absolute ignorance and gross incompetence. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent, progressive media.